Welcome to the Roy Matlock Jr. Money and Business Hour. Reach Roy at 615-843-2999 or visit roymatlockjr.com. And now, here's Roy.
All right, Roy Matlock Jr. here, and we are talking money again. And this has been going on, man, since I think the first time on the radio was 1992. How about that? So if that dates me, it does. And today, you think about since 1992, I started in the financial advisory business in 1984. All right. So if you think about that, also have been a business owner all during that time. Wouldn't it have been nice to have all of that experience and get to start out fresh with all the experience? Because even today, I think, man, you know what? I'm always learning something new and things like that. And so one of the things that we try to do is if you have kids like I do, I've got 4, and you want to teach them, try to give them a little, leg up on life and things like that. And so today's show, I'm going to go into things that you might, attempt to do to help your kids get started right and understanding money. And one of the things that we also offer, if you wanted to call in and we could do this, if you want to round up all your kids and teenagers and, grandkids, all that kind of stuff, old enough to where they're, can understand things. We've done family financial workshops, and I'll tell you a little bit about how that came about a little bit later in the show. But, one of the things you have to do is you have to teach people and hopefully they'll listen. They don't listen like they should listen. I mean, I remember when I was young, I didn't listen as much as I should have. But at the end of the day, you want to get your kids off to the right track. I remember early on, my dad was very conservative. And when you think about being a conservative, you think about, the little dollars take care of the big dollars. And if you kind of get that in your mind, you say, if you pay attention to the small things, it adds up to the big things, because the big things are less likely to occur. And so, you put more time and energy into that. But the day-to-day stuff is what, causes things to happen. But anyway, my dad always, he would come in and he would tell all my sisters knew all about this, and they had already gone through it before. And they're older. I got 3 older sisters and a younger brother. And he would say, turn the lights off. All right. Stop wasting electricity. And I would, as a kid, I would not turn the lights off. And I didn't think about it because first off, I wasn't paying the bill, and he was, stop wasting electricity. All right. You got to be conservative. All right. Don't be doing that. All right. And so then one day I came in and I flipped the lights on in my room, except the lights didn't flip on. And I was like, well, there's something wrong with the lights. No. My dad took the light bulbs out of the room. So there was just no light bulbs because I wouldn't listen. And I didn't mind spending his money. And as a result of that, I lost the light bulbs. And you think about that, to this day, I'm 65 years old. I can't walk out of my place and not have all the lights off. I mean, I don't know. It just bothers me. And so little ideas cause awareness. I'll give you another little thought process. When you're dealing with money and teaching kids and stuff like that. I had my daughter call me up, and I was like, hey, maybe some of this is working. She called me up and says, Dad, I was at Home Depot, and I had a bunch of stuff that I really didn't need. And she said, I took that. I just decided, why am I wasting this $100? And so she said, I took it, I didn't need it. I put it back, and some of the stuff I didn't need, it was about $100 worth of things that I could have spent, but I really didn't need it, and so on. And it made me think, what if you could, have a place to save the money that you said you didn't spend? So what will happen is people will say, yeah, I didn't go out to eat dinner tonight, and so I was going to save the money. But the problem is the money doesn't get saved. And so I started thinking about it. And I said, well, what if we could put something in place that you could actually save the money? And so I came out with what we call a spend it or save it account. And really it's a spend it or invested account. And so I opened up a fund, and I showed it a growth fund, and it took $250 to open it. And if I attach your checking account to it, you can invest any amount of money, $5, $500, any amount of money you want, anytime you want to do it. And so I set up those accounts, and I'm like, all right, when I was at a restaurant one night, and I just wanted to see how people reacted. And I was sitting there, and I said, "How much is a glass of wine?" I'd already had a glass of wine, and the guy says, $18. I said, "Nah, I think I'm just gonna save the money." And I pulled my phone out, and I opened up the app, and I put $18 into the growth fund. I said, "Nah, I just put it in my investment account instead. Give me the check." And this guy's like, "What did you do?" And I told him, I said, "Well, I've got my account, my checking account attached to my investment account, and I just put the money in there rather than drink the wine." And he was like, "I want one of those." And I said, "Well, maybe I'm onto something." So what you do is you start looking at ways to make it fun. All right. And when you learn that, I got another story that I think is interesting. One of my buddies who is also in the same business, his son and grandmother were on a cruise boat, and on this cruise boat, they won bingo and won like $250. And so that $250 normally would be spent immediately. And instead, he showed him how he could put that money into his account and started looking at the compounding of what would happen. And at 10%, that 250 would be 500 in 7 years. And so we start thinking about things like that. So if you got kids, grandkids, anything like that, you might want to have them listen to this whole show, because what we're going to do is talk about that. Now, the first thing that happens is we got to teach discipline and delayed gratification, because anything you decide, if you consume it, it's gone. But if you invest it, it grows. Now, does that mean you never spend any money? No, it doesn't mean that. But what it amounts to is that you change your mindset. The mindset becomes, I feel more empowered because I have money set aside, rather than feeling more empowered by blowing money and making people look at you like you think you're better off than they are, or something like that. I always would ask people when I walked into a neighborhood, if I came in when met somebody in their home, I'll say, "Hey, I got a question for you. How much do your neighbors make?" And they're like, "I don't know." I said, "Well, yeah, you do." I said, "Let me tell you how much money they make. They make about the same amount of money as you. That's why they're in your neighborhood." Because most of the time, when people start dramatically changing their income, what do? They move up to a bigger house and things like that. Occasionally, it's not that way. But today's show is going to be about teaching the basics of getting ahead. Get your kids on here. Listen to the podcast. Visit RoyMatlockJr.com. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Roy Matlock Jr. And today's show, we're going to kind of gear it toward teaching your kids how to handle money, but it's also teaching you how to handle money if you didn't get that training when you were a kid. When I first got involved in this business, I had, made a lot of mistakes. I'd actually made the mistakes before I got in the business, and then of helping people their finances. It took me a while to get out from under my mistakes, because I brought them into it and I didn't know what I was doing. I've always been somebody, I'm a hard worker. And when you're a hard worker and I got into commission only sales. If you've ever done that, people either sink or swim, and the ones that swim usually do really well. And I was one of those that I didn't really care if somebody told me no, or I didn't get tore up or bothered or anything like that. And so, it became apparent to me that this is something I like, the freedom of being my own boss and doing my own thing. And so, I always did well. And I started out, and I was selling Cutco knives. Some of you know what that is. And, that's one of those deals that you work for the summer, you quit after a week, and, most people don't do anything, but a few of them make it. Well, I was one of those that, I did good, and I made a lot of money doing it. I was really doing well. And first thing I did is I bought me a new car. And so here I am, I'm 20 years old. I got this new hot car. Then I bought a boat. All right. Because I was making money, and I learned what credit was, where they would loan me money to do that kind of stuff. And then what I figured out not too far after that was that I had to go to work now, because I had got myself obligated and so on. So, but if you looked at me, everybody would be like, "Wow, this guy's doing great." No, actually what I was doing was I was making money, but I didn't know what to do with my money. And so I went and spent it rather than save it. Didn't know I'd never heard of what a mutual fund was, which, by the way, they were around 60 years ago, just nobody knew about it. And so I started doing that. Then I had an awakening, and that awakening I went to an interview, and I learned about how you could invest with professional money management. And I understood and was taught something called the Rule of 72. And when I learned that Rule of 72, it changed my life, because when I started thinking about money, I looked at it completely different. So, what is that Rule of 72? If you just take an interest rate and divide it into the number 72, it tells you how long your money takes to double. So, what that means is that if you were to take it to a bank and the bank pays you 2%, well, divide it into 72 and your money will double in 36 years. That's not very motivating to me. But if you were to get, rather than 2%, you were to get 10%, it would double in 7.2 years. If you got 12%, it would double in every 6 years. And I started thinking about it. I was like, hold on a second. You mean this $100 that I'm getting ready to spend on something that I really don't need, or it's not necessary? I could put that $100 into one of these investment accounts, and if it gets 10%, that means in 7 years it's going to be $200 versus zero. All right, or in 14 years it's going to be $400 versus zero, and over a 30-year period, it's gonna be like $1,700 versus 0, and that's on one $100 spend. And I'm thinking, "Man, hold on a second." So I started looking at things differently. I started looking at the future value and the opportunity cost, that came about for me not paying attention to the dollars. And it doesn't change today. If you put in $100 over 30 years, it's about $1,700 at 10%. So we start thinking about that. And so then you start thinking about people that are friends of yours. Some people are given information and they act on it. Other people don't act on it, or they're not given the information. So, you go through life and you are an unconscious incompetent. You don't know, you just move along. But one day you find out, because you're, older in life, and your finances are a disaster, and you're like, hang on a second, something's got to give. And then you go in the panic mode. But then the other side is you learn. And if you're listening today, you're probably learning. You wouldn't be listening to a financial show if you didn't want to learn something. So what we do is we start looking at, two individuals. It's like they're driving the opposite direction on the interstate. So if you're both going 55 miles an hour in the opposite direction, you're going 110 miles apart in an hour, and you're far apart. And that's the difference in someone that is taking their money and they consume it versus someone that puts aside money and invest it. Had a scenario one time where I had an appointment. They came in and they had inherited money, and between the time that they had inherited money, they were two school teachers. I'll never forget this, and they had their first chance in life. Didn't have any money saved to speak of anything, and they showed up. Between the time the appointment got set up, they went into a car lot and they bought two new Corvettes. And I was like, "Oh my goodness." So they show up and they blew through most of the inheritance on two depreciating pieces of cars. All right. So anyway, so I start thinking about that. And I start thinking about, never buy a new car. Why should you never buy a new car? Because why do you want to buy things that are automatically going to go down in value? So we start looking at having mindsets that are different, because two individuals going in the opposite direction only for a 10-year period changes everything. So let me give you an example. If you go out and you've got a decent income, you should be able to save $500 a month. $500 a month is not, in today's world, $100 a week, $500 a month, $17 a day. I mean, it's not if you're working, that's not dramatic. But $500 a month, let me show you what happens. So two people side by side, one of them doesn't think about it, and they just spend it. All right. The other one puts 6,000 a year in, $500 a month. They do that for 10 years. They're going to have about $120,000 at 10%. So let's think through this. So one of them has zero, the other one has 120,000. Now watch what happens. All right. If the next one begins and they say $500 a month, they're going to have their 120,000. But the difference is the one that already had the 120, they don't have to save anything. 7 years later at 10%, they got 240,000. 7 more years, they've got 480,000, while the other one is just starting to catch up, and you never catch up because that has something to do with future value thinking. It has to do with thinking about opportunity cost. Now, let's take that same opportunity cost. So now the one person has got 120,000 in 10 years, the other one doesn't. And someone comes to him and says, "Hey, I got a business you can get involved in. It's going to cost 50 grand to get involved in it." And it turns out that it's a great business. And they take that 50 grand and they invest and get them a new business. And then they go build their income and they change their life. But the only reason they were able to do it was because they had set aside money on the front end. That's called opportunity cost or opportunity lost because you didn't do that. And so one of the things you can do is start talking to your kids about opportunity cost. You can talk to them about, investing money rather than spending money, and then look down the line on how to do it. One of the things that I did early on with my kids, I wanted them to, do some things where I would do some matching funds. So if they set aside some money, I would match it, kind of like a 401k. And so what happens is that, if they go work and they make some money, then we match it. And then when you do things like that, what happens is immediately, why would you spend it if you're getting a 100% return on your money plus compounding? Another thing that we did early on was we took and I went into one of the mutual fund sites and I said, "Look, let's figure out where we're going to put some of this money that you're making." Okay, when they had little jobs or whatever it may be, and I let them look through the different funds, and I said, "Look at the different companies that they own." And I remember, one of my sons, he was like, "I want to go to this one right here," because he recognized different companies that were in the portfolio that he recognized. All right, that he would, go into the store like GameStop and different things like that. And so, if you would like help as it relates to your money, you should reach out to us, roymatlockjr.com. You can also call us at 615-843-2999. We have 2 more segments to go. Be right back. All right, we're back, segment 3, and we're talking about kids and money and teaching your young adults, and that's not just teenagers, but young adults that are out there. What if you could give them the experience of your lifetime? I've been doing this for 40 years, and I see some of the big mistakes that are made, with people coming up, and some of these mistakes just devastate them over a long period of time. And so one of the things that we offer, and we did this in a huge way, we had 2,600 attendees attend our family financial workshop. That was logins. I don't know how many people were actually on there. We did it online, and it was a family financial workshop where we encouraged you to bring your kids, your teenagers, your young adults, things like that. So if you're a grandparent or a parent right now, I want to give you a couple of ideas. The first thing that I did, I went to a graduation party, and we've got, my mother just passed away at 102. So there was 5 generations of kids, one born in 1923 and my mother, and the other one born in 2023. And so we had all these kids running around, and our nieces and nephews. I mean, you can't even keep up with everybody. And we did a family workshop one day. We did it on a Saturday, and I told all of my family, I'm like, "Look, as a donation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open every one of them a small account. All they have to do is, if they're a teenager or whatever, they have to come. They got to come listen. And then that way we'll change our family tree." And I opened up, I don't know how many of them it ended up, it's 20 something, $250 accounts. And those $250 accounts went into a growth fund. And that growth fund that I put them in, you could add any amount of money, anytime, to that account. And so that began what I call the spend it or save it account. And so if you teach your kids, if they have a checking account, if you would like to set one of those accounts up for them, $250, you never have to add anything to it. And the one that I put those people in, it doesn't, we don't know what it's going to do in the future, but it's got like a 50-year track record of averaging over 12%. And so any money that goes in it would double every 6 years based at 12%. And so we did that. And that's how we kind of got this mindset. And so if you're wanting to teach your kids something more than go open a savings account, then this would be an opportunity. We'd be happy to help you with that. You can visit roymatlockjr.com or just call us and you can get that set up. And then wouldn't it be great to have all of your kids and grandkids, uh, have an account that they could put money into anytime? If you attach a checking account to it, you can literally in just a few minutes put money into it, any amount of money. And the reason I bring that up is that, why shouldn't you have an account that you could invest in any amount of money anytime? I mean, wouldn't it be better than just having an account like Amazon that you can spend money anytime, 24 hours a day, anywhere in the world? What if you had an account that you could invest money anytime, 24 hours a day, anywhere in the world? That's what I thought about. And so we started teaching things like that, where people wake up one day and they're like, man, this is a different way of doing things. We're going to invest our money and compound our money. Habits are the key to everything. You get someone young in the habit of doing that kind of stuff, they will continue to do it. If you get them in the habit of blowing their money, they're going to blow their money. And so that's the first thing that you might think about is what kind of habits are you creating? The most financial, you know, problems are not bad stock markets. Bad stock markets are never the financial problem. It's usually bad decisions. So, what are bad decisions that people make early in life and even later in life? Expensive cars. The first thing that I tell people, if you want to get ahead, is make a decision that everything you do, you're going to do it. You're going to buy secondhand. You're going to buy it used. And when I say buy it used, I mean everything you do. I remember back in the old days of the VCRs, and a lot of you, you know what a VCR is. A lot of younger people have no idea what a VCR is, but that's where you would go rent the tapes at Blockbuster and watch the movies and things like that. And so I remember, back then, before I got in the investment business, I bought a VCR from Circuit City, and believe it or not, as stupid as I was back then, I financed it. Or it had to pay. I don't remember what it was. And so anyway, of course, that was a dumb move. And I was like 20 years old, 21 years old. I thought, hey, I got good credit. That's smart. Well, what I learned was good credit generally is not good for you. All right, when you're getting started. And so the next thing that happened is my next door neighbor, he owned a VCR repair shop. It was called Dell's VCR Repair Shop. I wonder if he's still around somewhere, not doing VCR repair shop. And I told him, I said, "Hey, man," and the one I'd bought, I think was $500, the new one. And I said, "Hey, dude, if my VCR died, if you got one where somebody didn't pay for it, can you get me one?" He said, "Oh yeah, I always have one of those." And he brought it over and he said, I said, "How much I owe you?" He says, $100. And I was like, "Okay." So now when I'm thinking I got that $100, that thing lasted forever. And then eventually it was so big, we used it as a boat anchor when we went out on the lake. But that's the kind of stuff that I did. I bought used clothing, consignment store. One of the best things I ever did in the early days, and I was on the radio talking this is in the early 90s. I would go to Goodwill and I would buy pinpoint cotton shirts for $1. All right. And you're like, for $1, yeah. I would go in there and all of my shirts were nice cotton shirts. And what ended up happening was I got in the habit of doing that kind of stuff. Now, keep in mind, I'm not doing that. I place value on my time. And so that is no longer doing that now. But at that time, early on, it was part of just the overall mindset of that what I was going to do is cut all my expenses. And then I was going to take that money and put it into investments. And at that same period of time, I started with $150 a month going into an automatic draft. That automatic draft went into funds. It started out 50 a month went into the actual growth fund, and the other 100 a month went into an emergency fund until I got myself there. I got rid of car payments. It's interesting. I bought more new cars from the time I was 18 to 30 than I've bought since I was 30 and I'm 65. Isn't that funny? And when I couldn't afford to buy them was back then, all right, when I was 18 to 30, but when I could afford to buy them, I didn't buy them. I actually did buy one. I remember I was went into a car lot. I had triplets on the way. I already had one daughter, and I went into the car lot. And they knew who I was, and I'd always talked about buying used cars and stuff like that. And the guy says, "Well, he kind of looked at me funny. Aren't you guy on the radio?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I just don't have time to deal with it." And I bought a minivan and a new minivan. And I said to him, I said, I'm going to put it on a payment. And he really was like, "Oh, I could tell." And I said, "One payment." And I wrote him a check, and that was the end of that. And I bought that. And I bought one other new one. And since then, I've never bought any new ones because expensive cars are the first bad decision that people make early in their life that causes them problems. The second problem or the second bad decision is they get into credit card debt. Credit card debt is nothing more than a lack of a budget. That's how it works. No budget, you end up spending more than you make, and that's where credit card debt comes into play. And then before you know it, you've got yourself into a situation where you got more going out than you have coming in. And so we'll talk about a little bit of budget and things like that. The third one is lifestyle inflation. One of the things that I learned early on, before you get ready to upgrade your lifestyle when you can, all that kind of stuff. I heard this from one of my early mentors. He says, "Wait 1 year. When you just can't stand it anymore, you're ready to buy that bigger house, you're ready to do that, upgrade that lifestyle, wait 1 year." And then what happens is everything you do is in a decision mode that is a smart decision mode. One of the things that I always have told people is if you get anxious or excited or nervous or you feel uneasy when you're getting ready to do something, then you need to slow your roll because that could be something, another bad decision. My name is Roy Matlock Jr. We'll be right back. All right, Roy Matlock Jr., we're in segment 4. We've been kind of talking about how you teach your kids about money, but it's not just teaching your kids about money. For many of you, this will be a wake-up call to, getting your finances fixed. I believe this, that, financial stress is some stress you don't want to have. And the way you get around it is that you start applying rules, all right, rules of money. The first rule is that you need to have a budget. How do you set a budget up? We've got tons of information. If you go to roymatlockjr.com, I got a podcast. We actually, and you can find that podcast anywhere, but one of the benefits of going to the website and the podcast is that we have transcripts and you can search keywords on the website of the different podcasts, and then you can go. There's over 200 podcasts that are there, and you can do that, and then you can find out. We have a budget form on there. I had actually 3 different people that I was talking to, existing clients that are getting ready to retire, and I told them, I said, the first thing you need to do is you need to look at your retirement budget. And then that way, when we're creating income streams, it's based on, this is what you really need. And those budget forms, what they end up doing is they give you, include things like maintenance and, stuff like that. And then we back that out. And then we set up income streams to create your retirement income. So the budget is the first step. We've got a lot of good information on that. Once you get the budget, then you're going to go down the path of having an emergency fund. And that emergency fund is to keep you from going in debt. If you're already have high interest debt, maybe credit cards and things like that, you've already messed up. How do you get out of it? Well, let me show you how you get out of it. The first thing you do is you go through your budget and you make the assumption that you're going to fire all of your expenses. Now, how do you fire your expenses? Well, to begin with, on paper, you're going to take your income. So let's say your household income's 80,000, and you're going to go through and say, okay, right now I make 80,000. Let's look at all, and I have no expenses. I have no expenses. And then I'm going to look and I'm going to say, first off, I'm renting or I've got a house or something like that. If I were not living here right now, would I repurchase or re-sign up for that expense. Some of those you're locked into for a while. Maybe you've got a house that you paid too much for. Well, your goal should be to be able to fix that and move to something else. I had a one of my former reps who was one of my really close friends and worked with me 30 years, passed away recently. He came in at the beginning and when he first wanted to go full time with me. And what I did when I have a bunch of advisors that, they come in as part-timers. And, I've talked about this on the radio that we teach people how to become financial advisors. It's a sideline until they can learn how to do it. And the first thing I did when my part-timers wanted to go full-time is I would have the husband and wife, if they're married, come in and show me their budget, show me their income, their assets, everything that's going on. And he came in and I'm like, Anthony, you're broke. All right. You got credit cards, you got car payments, you got all this kind of stuff. I can't let you go full time. And because, then a couple things will happen. Chances are you won't make it because you got too much debt. You don't have you're messed up. And his wife is sitting there with him and they both wanted to do this and wanted him to do it. And I'm like, here's what I would do if I were you. If you really want to do this, here's what I would do. You got enough equity in your house that you can sell your house and you can sell these cars you got car payments on and move into an apartment. And then what you can do is buy a cheap car. And then once you buy that cheap car, you have no car payments. And now you got no credit card debt. You got a little bit of an emergency money left over because you've got rid of all this overhead and you were able to, um, you know, get rid of, use that equity to do it. And normally speaking, if I were to say something to someone like that, the last thing, especially a wife, would say, you want me to sell my house and move in an apartment and da da da, all that kind of stuff. Well, Anthony, he ended up agreeing, and so did she. And they sold the house. They paid the credit cards off. They bought a used car. Let me tell you what kind of car he bought. And this, we used to have bumper stickers when I was on the radio with Dave Ramsey, and it says, "Don't laugh, it's a money game car." And what that money game car meant was it was paid for. And so Anthony went out and he paid $750 for a car. He was embarrassed to go on appointments. He was training one of these guys that was an engineer, one of the part-timers, and the engineer, he said, "Hey, I'll meet you at Hickory Hollow Mall." And so he met him at Hickory Hollow Mall. He didn't even want the rep to see what he was driving, and the new guy. And so he met him. He got in the car. They went out, did their appointments and so on. They came back, and somebody had backed into the side of his $750 car, and they put a note on it. And he went and got an appraisal to get it fixed, and they gave him $1,200 to fix it. And so, what's the end story? 1 year later, he did well. He had no overhead, and they had saved $100,000 in a little over a year. Their situation went from car payments and credit cards and a house they couldn't afford to 100,000 saved, and they were renting. Eventually, they were able to go back and buy another house, and the rest is history. So what we want to do is we want to be looking at ways to get back on track to where you have a cash flow that is greater than your outgo. We fire the bills. Once we fire the bills, we re-sign them back up. The ones that we want to get rid of, that we can get rid of instantly, we do that. The ones that we can't may take a little bit of time. In my case, 2 new cars, got rid of them, bought 2 used cars once I was not upside down on them, and eventually ended up, rather than having 3 years of car payments, I had the same car payment for 1 year, and I had paid for cars, and that was what I do. All right. And then you pay cash for cars, and you avoid the credit card debt. Now, if you've got yourself in it, how do you go about doing it? It's a couple ways you can do it, but the first thing you do is you set up automated payments to where if you've got 5 of them, you would set up an automation to where it's $100 a month to each one of them. And the reason for that is credit cards, minimum payments go down every time you pay, and it refinances your debt out over about a 25-year period. But if you keep a level payment alone on the credit card, even if you don't add any more to it. If you keep the minimum payment always the same, say $100 a month, it'll pay off in about 5 years. And so we do that. Then you can apply any additional uh, money you have toward the smallest debt and get rid of that. And then you take it to the next one, the next one, the next one, until eventually you're out of debt. Once you get out of debt, immediately, whatever you've been applying to the debt, we set up an automatic draft to start investing that money. That's one way. The other way is we set aside a bank draft into a money market account. How do we do that? Well, you pay the minimum payments, levelize the minimum payments, and we set aside a bank draft that will set up for a money market account. And then once you get $1,000 in there, you clean it out and you pay it against the lowest one. And then that way it's automated also. So everything is about automation. It's generally not, bad markets, it's bad decisions. And so what we want to do is we want to avoid high interest debt, delay upgrades, think value over payment. You want to, looking rich. Most people that look rich aren't rich. Most people that are conservative in the way they operate, they have money. All right. So now we create a system. It's not about motivation. It's about a system. So if you're right now wanting to teach your kids how to do something, reach out to us and get one of these $250 accounts set up. You can do it. It can be automated for as little as $50 a month if they have a regular account, or maybe what you can do if you're a parent or a grandparent, you open one of these up and put $50 a month in, whatever it may be, to help change it. And then you participate with them, show them what the money's going into. And when they start making money, show them how they can put that money in there and start seeing how this works. I'm telling you that kids are curious. And if you teach them that, it's great. And, how do you teach them? I can show you that. And what we generally do is, if I meet with a client, I don't care if you're young or old, I'm going to show you how these things work, and you'll get to see where they put the money and how they go about doing it. And it puts you in a position to where, what's going on, and so on. So then what we do is we work toward creating the defense and the offense. And so as you progress, you got yourself and a budget, you got an emergency fund, which keeps you from going in debt. Now we're going to make sure that if anything happens, we protect our income and our assets. That's life insurance and health insurance and disability insurance for your income or assets, home, car, liability insurance, business liability, things like that. We protect that. And now we've got our defense in place. We get a will and a trust in place, which allows us to, if something happens, we are not in a situation where no one can access our money to pay our bills. And I heard a story not too long ago where, a guy got his house foreclosed because he was unable, he was not married, and he did not have the ability. He was under for, a period of time and couldn't act on his own, and the payment didn't get paid. And the money was there, just no one could access it. So that's where you have powers of attorneys, financial health care, all that stuff. Then we go on the offense. The offense is, as I've been speaking, mutual funds. You set up Roth IRAs. I've got a client of mine just this week. He set up 2 Roth IRAs for his son and daughter, and the other 2 had already done this, and they have income. You can put 100% of your income into a Roth IRA. So if they make $500 as a kid, they can have a Roth IRA that grows tax-free forever. And so we do that. And by the way, if you're listening right now, we have until April 15th to be able to fund your Roths, your traditional, and your backdoor IRAs for 2025. So if you haven't done that, reach out to us. We can help you do that as well. And so the whole mindset behind everything we're talking about today is about teaching. All right. Teaching a system to your family and your kids to change your family tree. That's what I do. I always want to think like, one day when I'm dead and gone, what's going to be left behind? All right. Am I going to teach my kids to be independent, taking care of themselves? If you think about it right now, I think most people that have children, they just want to make sure their kids are going to do fine when they're dead and gone. They want to get them independent, self-sufficient, doing it right. And the way you do that is you teach them. My name is Roy Matlock Jr. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can reach out for a free consultation, 615-843-2999, or visit roymatlockjr.com. We'll talk next week.